Welcome to Paradigms at paradigms.life, the radio show and podcast that brings you inspiring people with visions of a viable future for life on Earth that includes humans. We're welcoming back a musician who's got a new record out with his band, really wonderful music, dedicated to celebrating and honoring children and to calling for better treatment for children here on Earth. We'll be getting into that and more, so let's welcome my guest on this episode of Paradigms. Sundar Viswanathan, welcome back to Paradigms.
Great to be here. Thanks.
I'm really glad to talk with you. You have this wonderful new record out with your band Avataar, the album Worldview, and I just listened to it. What a beautiful way to start my day.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
It's really something. So I'm really curious, how have you been? How have you been getting through COVID? How's your family? And then let's talk about the record. But how are you?
Well, thanks for asking that. I mean, yeah, it's been tough. I have to say I'm grateful for, my security, having my living space and a healthy family. I've had some tragedies in not the immediate family, but my outside family. When my cousin, my wife's cousin passed away from COVID. He was fairly young. So it's definitely affected us. Yeah, I mean, it's been a really interesting time. I know for a lot of people it's been really rough, and it's been rough on this end too. But, I've been trying to find ways to develop through it, to grow in certain ways. And I mean, this album is really kind of a testament to that, because a lot of this album, I can say, was influenced by things that were happening during COVID and just before COVID. So it has been a challenge, but, we're here and things are looking up. I'm being optimistic. There's a moment there where it was just a few dark moments in there, just the way things were changing, and it felt very, even though my family's here, it felt lonely just being in our space in the world and everybody being outside in their space. So there were some challenges, but we're getting through it, and I'm feeling more and more optimistic about things. So, and thanks for asking.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you are getting through it and doing okay. I'm sorry about your wife's cousin.
Yeah, and how about you? I hope you and your family are well.
I lost my oldest brother to COVID.
Oh, so sorry.
In May of 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, mind-blowing. And it is, what does they say, ancient Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. I mean, here we are.
Yeah, for sure.
But, I'm looking at your album cover. The name of the album is Worldview. I just listened to this music, hearing what you just said about it. It's like, whatever happens, here we are right now. There is this amazing aliveness in the moment, even when things are really messed up, and somehow, instead of being attached to wanting it to be different than it is, which is really easy to feel, what if we just sit with this moment as it is? Somehow that feels important.
The word surrender comes to mind, and surrendering in a way like flowing with it and trying to make, trying to see a perspective that you can make it work. I hate to say it this way, make it work in your favor. I mean, it's tough because, like you, people who lost family, it's never going to be, it's never a time that you look back on in a positive way. But hopefully, we can find our pathways through this, and it'll take us to a place which makes us better people. That's the takeaway, hopefully, from this for people. That we develop and we evolve from these experiences.
Well, part of human existence is loss. Everyone experiences it. There's no escape. And whether it's the huge loss of, hundreds of thousands of people dying from a virus or the loss of one loved one, it challenges our very nature to not expire with the loss. We have to find motivation and meaning to keep going, and we do. I mean, obviously we do, but that, I don't know, I feel like it needs to be deliberate.
Yeah, I mean, I think if one thing happens out of this, I really hope that it just brings people closer together, makes people understand that we do rely on each other. We're not independent people that move in our, about our business in the world, and we have to we have to be connected to one another and make this world a better place. This we'll talk about it, but this album was my plea in a way for some of those things. And my first album was also a lot about that too. We have to see this as a paradigm shift and maybe awakening, a wake-up call for all of us to live our lives maybe in different ways and in harmony with each other and in empathy and compassion with each other,
And saying that through music, it's a very powerful medium. It changes us when we hear music. And this record particularly, I mean, the names of the pieces, you've written some descriptions about what motivated them. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
Well, it's you and your ensemble's way of speaking to all of us, your intention, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a poet, so I can't say things with words. Like, I'd love to be. I wish I could, do that. But that's not my vehicle. Mind you, there are some lyrics to some of my songs, and so I have to credit Felicity Williams for some really thought-provoking lyrics. But I think at the end of the day, if I can relate through the way I put different combinations of sound together, the way I feel about things, and then make some, it touches somebody in a certain way and it makes them think about something maybe a little differently or view something about the world a bit differently. That's my purpose has been fulfilled,
I'm talking with Sundar Viswanathan about his new record, Worldview, with his band Avataar. We'll be back with more of this conversation and get into what some of the specific tracks are about. Here is something from the new record. This is the title track, Worldview, on Paradigms at paradigms.life. That's the title track from Avataar's new record, Worldview. And I'm talking with Sundar Viswanathan, who is the band leader and composer. Let's get back to that conversation now. Let's talk about the tracks.
There's kind of two main things I'm thinking about, and I've thought about as I crafted or created this album and compositions. One big one was the many things that I've seen over the years, as since I've been a thinking adult, let's say, an adult that's actually been looking around and observing. I mean, I think as artists, we always have to be this way, but there's a lot of things that have been going on in the past 10 years, maybe a little bit more than that, politically, socially, culturally, in our part of the world and everywhere really, that have really sort of made me think about what's important. And one sort of theme in this album is how important children are to us and to our world, and what valuable and essential citizens they are in our world, and how we're not really doing them right, let's say, by the way we treat the planet, by the way we're doing things, by things like gun control. I don't want to get too political, but this is a political album. I mean, my stance is on certain things that I believe are really impacting our children, the most important people that we have. Another thing is I couldn't help thinking about during COVID. I had two nieces born during COVID who I couldn't see for many months. I was thinking about all the kids that are born during COVID. Their whole perception, they're told, yeah, you can't touch this person, you can't hug this person. Many of their formative years are going to be different than what we experience. And whether that's the fault of the adults or not, I don't know where that whole thing comes from, but it is, at some level, it's everything that is creating this world is our fault. It's we have to take responsibility for it. So how are the children being affected by these things? And these kids that are born in COVID, they're never going to experience this world in the same way that we did. And kids that are affected by violence around us and all the other things that we don't take charge of and control and really make the right choices around. I'll say us and our leaders. That really impacted me strongly and led me towards writing some of the music. And the other thing that I was thinking a lot about, especially during COVID, about how isolation was such a powerful agent of change, depending on what your perception of it, or how you accepted it or how you looked at it. Isolation could mean that you lock up in your space and you're filled with depression and anxiety, which is understandable. Or it could mean that you take it in a way where you go inside yourself a bit more and explore yourself and maybe lead to some kind of realization of yourself, understanding who you are. And I think that was the case for a lot of people, that people were forced to be in their own space and look at themselves and then hopefully grow in that process. So those two were important themes in this album. So overall.
The children one, let's start there. I mean, you're absolutely right that developmentally, little people during this whole experience have had a whole different introduction to humanity than we had. They don't get held by a bunch of people. They don't get to be in a group as much. Those are things humans have done forever that are part of how we grow and become people who can interact with other people. So we have to pay attention to that. You're absolutely right. Also, the thing about masks, and I am not someone who is opposed to wearing a mask. I wear a mask in public. But when you're little, babies, they read faces. And if half the face is covered, so they need time with adults whose faces are uncovered.
Yep. Every time I think about it, I shake my head because it's crazy. Just the way things have changed and the way, little people, kids, the way they have to see things. I have two little kids as well. And they're affected more than I'm affected, I would say, but they show in different ways, right? They're not necessarily as vocal as we are, as but it came to a point where they were saying, Daddy, I'm tired of this. I don't want this. I hate COVID. I want out of this. So I know we're doing what we can do, and just have to be patient. And and what can you do? It's out of our control. But they're going to be the ones affected by it more than we are.
We can miss what we've lost, but for them, well, they may not like what they got, but they don't necessarily miss what existed before because they didn't know it.
That's the sad part.
Yeah,
in a way, because they didn't know it, and when how will they know this, and what's their? I mean, for me, it almost extends further. It's like I talk with my friends around my age. Sometimes we joke about. I'd say, offer the simpler times, right? They will never know what that is. What the simple times are without technology. When you went outside with your friends all day and that kind of thing. And it's a whole different thing for them now.
And for those of us who are straddling this period of change, we remember what was and we're living with what is, and that's also really.
Yep.
I mean, I feel like I'm living in a science fiction story half the time.
I know. It's unreal sometimes. I mean, yeah, I know.
But all that being said, I think what you're saying with this record is, let's pay attention to all of it.
Yep.
Let's notice all of it.
Let's notice it, and let's make the decisions that move this world in a place of positivity, a place of healing, so that kids don't have to be worried about things. And they don't have to, look over their shoulder when they're on the street. I can't let my kids out to play. When I used to go out and run around and play all day and all night, and not all night, but I'd be home from school. I'd be gone until dinner, come back, and I'd be gone until bedtime, right?
Oh, yeah. It was like, go out, don't come back till dinner.
Yeah.
We don't want to see you in the house right now. Go play. Get out of here.
Not only that, but gives the parents a little bit of space too.
Exactly.
It does.
We're talking about some dire stuff, but this record's very upbeat. I mean, we're talking it's morning. I just listened to it, as an early morning thing, and it's like I said, what a beautiful way to start the day. The music is light and shiny and beautiful. The vocals are gorgeous. As you say, Felicity wrote these lyrics, but she also performs them beautifully. Your group is just really tight and a wonderful combination of sounds. And we need that. Yeah.
It would have been really easy for me to write music that was, I tried to purposely sort of not go to the heavy side. There's some stuff that, don't get me wrong, as you know, there's some themes here that are quite heavy.
Yes.
I want this album to be relevant and to make a statement, but also be beautiful, I think that's important. And I guess in a larger sense, I'm moving towards making art that hopefully is more, that relays, like I said before, what I think about the way things are in our world. And rather than just be music purely for entertainment, music that can actually maybe make a change if I don't, if I can say that, make a positive change in the world. And I think if I don't do that, then I'm kind of like not doing anything. It's my perspective on it anyway.
Here's another track from Worldview, the new record by Avataar. This one's called Chrysalis. That's Chrysalis from the new record Worldview by the band Avataar. And now let's get back to my conversation with Sundar Viswanathan. He's going to tell us a bit about his composing process. I'm curious about your process. You're inspired by emotion and by events and experiences that matter to you. How does that become music?
It's funny because I teach university, right? And when I teach my students composition, I go through processes. I talk about ways in which developing your themes and your ideas and et cetera, et cetera. It's all that technical stuff. And then, then they ask me, how do you write? Which do you follow? And I guess I don't follow any of them. I write purely from inspiration. I mean, I do follow some of these things, but without thinking about following them. It's more like I have to be writing about something that moves me. And there has to be that little bit of fire in my gut, and then I dig for that sound and that feeling and that little melody. And then I can work from that melody and I get more, and that inspires more. And my biggest challenge when I'm writing is to curtail the amount of information that I put on paper, is to edit. In other words, some of these melodies are fairly complex, and I always have to say, okay, this is putting too much on there. There's too much to digest, right? So I have to pull back. And then maybe the melody that I write on paper becomes two different tunes. I have to cut it, separate it, and work it out that way. So it really starts from a place of being inspired by things that happened or certain ways I'm feeling about things and people. So that's the way I write. Really, it sounds cliche, but yeah, I do. I write from a place of inspiration. The melody sort of comes out, and I sing it onto a little tape recorder thing, not a tape recorder, but digital thing, and then I take that, transcribe it, and then I go from there.
I love hearing about the different ways people do this. But the common thread is always something. It starts with some little something that the person hears or that shows up in their brain, and then they can't quite put it down and take it somewhere else. Some of the songs on this record, let's talk about Innocence.
So this is one of the songs that was inspired by an event, and this was inspired by the Sandy Hook shootings of December 14, 2012. That day, something inside me died. I mean, it was really, really hit me hard. I mean, my daughter was a year old, a little bit more than a year old, and maybe if I wasn't a parent, I certainly would have felt it, but may not have hit me like to the core like that. And it was broke me. I have to say, it broke me a little bit for a while. I couldn't watch the news things afterwards, and then it just has to come out. When you start seeing things like that, it has to come out in certain ways. So that was, and I say, an easy one. That the inspiration or the feelings came out very, they flowed out, and the melodies started coming out, and I just wrote them down, and I wanted to make this a tribute to those souls that were taken too quickly and too soon, and all those people that were murdered that day. So yeah, inspired by those children and the adults who died there. Why, the question, why did that have to happen, and what are we doing to make sure that never happens again? These kind of things, and there's a bit of frustration around that, a lot of frustration around that, the lack of changes that are happening around making situations so it won't happen again. So there was a strong emotion around that when I wrote that music.
What you just said made me think about the people who are angry, who protest masks or vaccines, or who say that these events are false flag events. It made me think about that they're expressing their responses too through those behaviors, and that we have choices about how we express ourselves, about how we respond to these things. It just made me think about that, like,
exactly,
because we're all responding one way or another, some with anger, with grief, with whatever, to the world around us.
Yeah, for sure. I like the idea. It really keeps it kind of simple. Is there only two responses or two ways of thinking about things, either through fear or through love, right? And I'd say I'm still working on the fear thing, but I try to think about things as, how can I respond in a loving way, but it's still, love has all its dimensions, right? It can be love, but it can be a love that's fierce. It can be love that's adamant, can be love that's saying, how dare you do this? How could you let this happen to our to the most valuable citizens of our world, and this and that kind of love for them. And so your point is well taken about the different ways of reacting.
And I think what you're saying, I mean, children, obviously, it's cliche to say it because it's the truth. They are the future. We were all children once, and we were the future then. And our elders looked upon us that way, and now we look upon children with that, and hope that they will have a future that is, vibrant and alive, where they are allowed to thrive and become more. But here we are, and in this world, so often it's the most innocent, the most defenseless, who are subjected to the most brutality, and it's
yep. That's the thing. It's especially young children. There's not much they can do, but be children, and we have to be the stewards of their innocence, of keeping them, allowing them to be children. We have to be the ones who create that space of safety to let them be children and let them grow that way. And actually, that could possibly lead to two other songs that I've written that are really tie to these two ideas of being stewards for children and also having safe spaces for them.
We'll be back with the final part of my conversation with Sundar Viswanathan after we hear this one. It's called Innocence. And we'd love to know what you think of the conversation you're hearing and the music from Sundar Viswanathan. So please, leave a comment. You're listening to Paradigms at paradigms.life. from the band Avataar, their new record Worldview. That's Innocence. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that kind of heartrending? Here's the final part of my conversation with Sundar Viswanathan, Avataar's band leader and primary composer. Well, let's jump to track 7, A Safe Space for Children, for all.
That Safe Space tune was inspired by my thoughts of children. You think of children, and children are the same everywhere. They want to be happy. They want to laugh. They want to play. They want to run around and just be children. And how are we creating spaces? That's on one side. How are we creating spaces for them to be children? And it's fine in our own homes, but then, the children, for instance, refugee children who are in the camps, how is that environment conducive for them to be children? Children that are in, say, homes that are not, that are broken, etc. How is that a good space for them to be children? They deserve a safe space to be children. And the other side of that, too, is that in some way, even in those spaces that are not, quote unquote, safe spaces, children are still children. They're still able to laugh and still smile. I look at pictures of camps, refugee children, and most of the time they're smiling. They're still joyful. At their core, they're joyful beings. And we have to honor that, and we have to have them. We have to create, we have to encourage that by creating these spaces for them. And then I put in brackets for all, because at the end of the day, we all deserve these safe spaces. And we all were looking for these safe spaces during the pandemic. And some of us had them, some of them maybe didn't. But we all deserve these spaces of safety, and where we can also tap into, if you want to look at it this way, we can also be innocent and also be childlike and be honest and authentic. Because, let's be clear, it's our environment and the input from the things that are happening out in the world that come into us and that we take in that sort of rob us of our authenticity and our honesty, I think, and being who we're supposed to be, kind, compassionate human beings,
Children unlearn their innocence by their interactions and experiences with adults.
Yeah.
We make them unsafe.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's such an important thing. And then actually, if you don't mind, it ties into another song here.
Yeah.
The Little Kurdi.
Yeah.
So everyone might remember the little boy, Alan Kurdi, who little Syrian boy who they were trying to escape. They were basically being trafficked. It was refugee trafficking, where profiteers were carrying refugee families across the Mediterranean, I think it was, to get them away from Syria. And this little boy was washed up on the beach in Italy. I'll never get the image of that little boy lying face down in the sand out of my head. I mean, that brutal. Like, it just, again, that was another thing that really broke my heart. And this is my tribute to him, or my homage to him, and my just representing my feelings to him and the sadness. This poor kid, he's taking on this boat, maybe in the beginning for him it's like a boat ride or something. Maybe he's like enjoying it, and then he doesn't realize like what's going on here. He's so small. I think he's 3 years old, but for profit, they're not having safe situation in this boat, and they're cramming these people on this boat. And then he was a casualty of adults' greed. So so this is another one that came out very strongly.
How are your kids doing?
They've been able to go back to school. So that's really, really been helpful, and play with their friends, and all of us, adults around them are double vaxxed. And in Canada, I mean, the States will get this sooner probably than we will, the vaccines for under 12, but they're doing much better. I mean, and we try to get them to go to friends' places whenever possible, friends, school friends, and so they're getting better. It's still not the same, what it used to be. I don't think it's ever going to be what it used to be.
Let's talk about Avataar. You've got this really amazing ensemble, bunch of instruments, wonderful vocalist. You've been playing together for a while. This is not your first record together. How's the group? How's the group process? How did this all go to make this album during this time?
Yeah, so the core group is 6 of us, and then 2 extra ones on the album are guest artists. Yeah, it's been a 6-piece since its initiation. It's been over 10 years now, and many of the members in the band are core members have been from there from the beginning. The band's gone through many incarnations. Different people from the Toronto scene have come through in the early days. It started kind of as, it's a vehicle for my compositions. And I was just looking for members in the community, in the jazz community, music community, who had eclectic interests musically. I've studied, world music, some Indian classical music, and Brazilian music, and some Turkish music and stuff. So I've been involved with different kinds of music. And then the other people in the band also, they have their influences. So it really started as a way to put people together with diverse interests who are all very high level in the jazz area, and create something that, sort of developed a unique sound. And this is kind of interesting because I always seem to have kind of a problem on one end, but on the other end, it's kind of a good thing, is that the music I hear from, presenters and whatnot, they say it's very unique, very, very strong, and very good music. I'm not sure to put it in jazz or to put it in world music. There's this thing of categorization that I've always sort of had a problem with. And I think one level it's like, great, that means that this is genreless music, hopefully, but at the other hand, it's like presenters sometimes they say, hey, where are we going to put it? But I think good music is good music, and hopefully this is good music, and it should be able to be understood, and everyone should be able to appreciate it. So the band really started from the eclectic interests of all the different members, and we've been through a lot of different things. We played a lot of different venues, and we had a great tour in 2018 in South Africa and 2019 in Western Canada. We're hoping to do some United States touring and Europe stuff. So there's stuff on the horizon. I mean, things were obviously delayed because of COVID. I had some stuff that was in the works. They got kiboshed, but I'm still working on it, and the band is still developing in different ways, and there's some new sounds in this album compared to the first album. So that's kind of a quick overview. You actually have the physical CD, right?
I do. It's in front of me.
Did you look in the sleeve?
Yes, I was just looking at it.
Have you found the little gift?
A little gift. Oh wait, here it is.
You can keep it a surprise if you want, because I just tell everybody it's a little gift, but you have to buy a CD to actually get it.
Oh wow. Oh, wow, that is so cool. No, I'm not even going to say what it is. Wow, that is both beautiful and touching and a little heartbreaking after the little Kurdi song we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, Sundar. That's inspired. Okay, folks, you have to buy the CD to get the little gift, but it's well worth it. It will touch your heart. Huh.
Yeah. So I wondered whether, because I have to make sure I tell people, because some people might miss it.
Yeah, I totally had. That just adds a whole level of dimension to this, honestly. I really appreciate how you've taken your deep caring and turned it into music for us.
Thank you. Thanks I'm glad it's making that kind of impact.
Yeah. Well, I hope a lot of people listen to this.
I hope so too. And if it's okay, I'd like to thank the Canada Council of the Arts and the Ontario Arts Council for supporting this album. They really support a lot of Canadian artists and their work, and it's so important at this time. I think art is so important right now. Any kind of art, allowing ourselves to, experience beauty, through art. There's been some gray days, and color is so important, and music is so important to us.
Absolutely. It's so easy to feel discouraged about humanity, and music and art and creativity and demonstrations of caring are the antidote.
Yeah, for sure.
Sundar, thank you so much.
My pleasure. May I just note my website?
Yes, please do.
Can you hear tracks? You can hear some tracks on Bandcamp. If you search for Avataar, Avataar, you'll find Avataar on Bandcamp. You can hear at least one or two tracks before the release next Friday, which is the official release of the album. And then on my website, you can hear the music that I've created in the past. So it's Sundar Music, Sundar music.com. And thank you so much, Baruch. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today.
Sundar Viswanathan, thank you so much for returning to Paradigms and talking with me. It was a great conversation. A little heavy, but really one that needs to be had. And I think the focus, how we treat children Not how you and I talk to a child that we interact with so much as how we as humanity treat our children, what we put them through in war and famine and ideological abuse and all these terrible things. How can we even call ourselves civilized if we can't treat our children well? So I'm incredibly grateful, Sundar, for this record and for our conversation. Check out Sundar's website, sundarmusic.com, SUNDARMUSIC, and you can click on the different links and learn about his various projects, Avataar and other bands. Sundar is prolific. I hope you'll check out his website. It's really well worth learning about and hearing more of his music because it's wonderful. Thank you, Sundar. And if you enjoyed this episode of Paradigms, I hope you'll check out our archives at the Paradigms website, paradigms.life, and in iTunes and wherever else you find your podcasts. You'll find Paradigms there too. Paradigms has a Patreon campaign going. I hope you'll check it out and become a patron. Patreon.com/paradigms, PARADIGMS. The subject matter in this episode, Sundar's focus on children, so important. So let's have the word for the week be child. Notice the children around you. Notice the child within you. Notice children in the news. Let's just focus on children for a week. Really pay attention. I'm going to leave you with one more track from Avataar's new record, Worldview. This one is one that Sundar and I were talking about. It's called A Safe Space for Children for All. All right, Baruch signing off for Paradigms. We'll see you next time with more inspiring people. Until then, be well.
Da 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 da.
You've been listening to Paradigms at paradigms.life.